Welcome to the EdTech Throwdown. Join us, Eric Geis and Nick Johnson, as we dive into today's best EdTech tools, tips, and practices. We do the research so you can teach your class. Remember to follow us on social media like Instagram, X, or Facebook by looking for the handle @EdTech Throwdown. Now please enjoy the show.
Welcome to the EdTech Throwdown. This is episode 169 called EdTech for Video Discussions, aka Replacers for Flip. In this episode, we'll talk about the ever-popular Flip, formerly known as Flipgrid, as it is set to transition to Microsoft obscurity. Video discussions are a valuable tool whether you'll have access to Flip or not. In this episode, we'll teach you about them. This is another episode you don't want to miss. Check it out.
What is going on with Flip? It's flip-flopping.
It's flip-flopping.
It went from we will be free to now we will be free if you pay.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Very bizarre.
Yeah, free if you pay for Microsoft Teams. That's great.
Right. We had a teacher send this to us faster than we even learned about it. The original question was just straight up, what do you recommend we use in place of Flipgrid next year? That was almost the exact wording of the email that we got. And Geis and I both kind of looked at each other and said, at least I did first. I was like, what does that even mean? First of all, we don't have a lot of Flipgrid users at our school. Second of all, it's free. You just keep on using it. Little did we know, it's going under, I guess, a transition. I mean, a lot of people are saying it's going away, but it's not technically going away, right?
No, it's just going to be a part of the Microsoft package. That's what it seems like. We're a Google school, so we have Google Classroom and stuff like that. Microsoft has their platform, and between the two, I don't think there's a right or a wrong one. I just think that it's based on preference and what the school can afford and pay for and want to provide professional development for. So I know for us, we will throw out some alternative options that we're going to also pass to the staff members that have used Flipgrid in the past. I was a Flipgrid user for a while. I enjoyed the product, but it was a great product for a long time. Still is a great product, but as other tech tools that I like better surfaced, I started using those to kind of, I don't know, I like to use the Swiss Army knife type of tools where I don't need to teach students or teachers multiple new things. They all kind of embed into one another.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe we should back up just a little bit and cover our bases here in case you're listening to this and somehow don't know what Flipgrid is. I think that's unlikely because it is one of the more popular, or has at least been one of the more popular tools. It's a website, an app where you can go as a student and basically post a video of yourself on like a commonly shared board of videos. I forget what they call them. But that's what it is. And within that, there's all sorts of different things you can do. They've got like Flipgrid Shorts, which is its own special sort of camera where they can do different things. It's roughly social media inspired, and that's sort of the draw and the attraction to it. But they describe themselves as a video discussion tool where, the kids are essentially having an online discussion via video, because after each student posts a video, the whole class can then see everybody's videos and either watch them on their own or play them as a group or whatever, leaving comments or other video comments around all that. And this is a hard episode to do because video discussions is a very strange EdTech segment in that it doesn't really exist outside of Flipgrid or Flip. And if you are a Google school, which the majority of schools are, I know there's a lot of Microsoft Teams schools out there, like you mentioned, but I think Google still has a slight edge on that, then you're going to lose access to Flip altogether. If you are a Microsoft school, you are not losing access as long as you can still get into Teams, because within a Teams meeting, I guess it would be a meeting. I'm not exactly even sure how it will function because we don't use it. But as long as you have access to Teams, then you can still technically do all these things. So we're talking to the Google people out there. There just really aren't any other tools that do exactly what Flip did. They essentially don't exist. So you'll notice a lot of the things that we put together in this episode almost seem like workarounds or ways to get a similar effect. But you might also find yourself feeling like none of these are really going to do it. And that's because I just don't think it's out there, at least not any EdTech tools large enough that we were able to come up with them. So that's what we've got for this episode. Let's take a pause here before we get into the main segment and we talk about some of these video discussion tools, some of these flip replacers for our teachers out there who use Google as their, sort of the primary housing grounds for their ed tech. Of course, we're going to also hear a message from the Teach Better Podcast Network.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcasts. Now let's get back to the episode.
All right, so we are back here to officially go through this list. We turned up 7 different things that we thought you could use in place of Flipgrid. And we'll just kind of rattle these off one at a time. Because it is the summer, we're trying to keep the episodes a little bit shorter here. So we both made a promise to each other that we're not going to talk extensively on each of these things to try and honor that. But let's kick it off with our first one, which is Padlet. Padlet is another very popular EdTech tool. What is Padlet? If you've not used it before, in general, you could call it an interactive learning space. But if you're like me, that type of description is always, it's always tough. Like, what does that actually mean? That could mean literally anything. So picture this. Here's a more detailed version. You generate a space for students to start posting things. So automatically, that sounds a little bit like Flipgrid. There's a board. They can double click anywhere on that board. And then within this space where they're double clicking to add things, they can do just that, add things. What is things? Really anything. It could be files, right? They can upload files to the Padlet. There's like a save as option. There's little icons, I think it's down in the bottom right-hand corner, where you can find out what all these different things are that you can add, like images, audio, different links, other documents. And here's the big one. You can add videos to these boards. So if you are looking for a commonly shared spot for students to add videos that then other students can view, Padlet is probably the one that I would recommend at the top of the list. Out of everything else we're going to add here, I'm not sure if you agree that Padlet is the top of this list, but I think it's going to be the closest just because of how established they are, how collaborative it is. And it's going to be very easy to share this board amongst the class and get a somewhat Flipgrid-like feel.
Yeah, I would agree that Padlet is a great tool. I think you get 3 free ones before you'll have to pay for the upgraded service there. So 3 free ones, meaning if you're using this for a class, use it, and then once you're done with it, try to get what you need off of there and then start a new board. But I would say Padlet is a front runner for sure, along with the next one, which we talk about a lot, which is Canva. In Canva, you could do screencasts, which are awesome. It's very easy to use, and you could plop those screencasts or those video recordings right into a whiteboard. And with the whiteboard, if you have the students' names already set up in the whiteboard, which I would encourage you to do at the beginning of the year, you could do a project like this. They could put their video in there, resize it down to be small, where other students can listen to this video and they can reply using a video, or if the project calls for it, you could just tell them to make a post-it note or a text box and reply underneath that video right there and then. And the great thing about this is that Canva is free for education. So K-12, you can use it, and there's no limits on it. It's free. And the other thing is you can find other ways to doctor up your videos. You could add icons, you could add buttons, images, graphics, things like that. You could add music to the background if you want. So I find this as being a pretty good alternative, considering there's not really any restrictions to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you totally on that. Canva is, I don't know. Canva is what I would use. I would probably still recommend Padlet to other people, but both of them are probably the top choices here. I just want to add in one detail. You got to be a little careful in that, with Canva, the options are different depending on the type of design that you're using. So you mentioned whiteboards, which I think would be excellent, because a whiteboard, if you don't know, it's just like this big, expansive white space where students can add things, right? They can draw, they can put in pictures, videos. If you are in a whiteboard, it's a little bit clunkier to actually have students insert the video. They've got to record the video separately elsewhere, upload the video into Canva, and then add that video. So it's definitely feasible, but I know a lot of teachers get turned off when there's multiple steps. If you were to do the same thing in Canva presentations, there is a slightly less clunky option where you just have to share that presentation with the students, maybe give them, I don't know, like assign each student a slide in the presentation. And because it is a presentation, all they have to do is click the upload button. This is along the left-hand side of the screen. Click the upload button, and there's literally a record yourself option right there. They will not see that in whiteboards, at least as of, summer 2024, but they will see that in presentations. And that way they're doing the video, the inserting of the video and everything all in that one place and not doing multiple steps. Personally, I don't really care. I'm just sharing that because I've heard teachers complain about stuff like that.
Yeah, this is something that we talked about over the pandemic when we were doing remote learning. We had a lot of, different templates, whether it is Google Slides or Canva presentations, where you could run a gallery walk, a digital gallery walk, and that's essentially what Nick is describing right there. But yeah, so Canva is a great option as well. I'm going to let you get into the next one because, to be honest with you, I have not worked with this in a while. I think it also went premium as well, and it's kind of following the same, guidelines or path in my mind as Flip.
Yep, you got it, man. So we're talking about Wakelet here. Wakelet has the Flip camera integrated in it. Wakelet, we've always called it the Pinterest of education, where there's a shared board, a shared space, and you or your students can add resources to that, and they kind of pop up in these squares, these card-looking things. Some of those resources could be videos, and if students are adding a video to a Wakelet board, they can record that video using the Flip camera, which is still a thing as of right now, as we're doing this recording. Will that last? Hard to say. I would probably guess not, right? If Microsoft is trying to lock down Flip to only existing in Teams, I would imagine they would not allow Wakelet to keep doing it. I would also then guess that if Flip gets pulled from Wakelet, that Wakelet would have something similar in its place, or just allow you to record videos as you add to the Wakelet board. So this is all just speculation, but we had to put it on the list because it's there, and it actually is, still Flip that is there. If you want to give this a try, you can use Wakelet for free. Like you said, there is a paid version. There is still a free option, but of course it limits you to a certain quantity, of Wakelet boards. If you head to our show notes, you'll see linked to a YouTube video that tells you how to use the Flipgrid Shorts camera in Wakelet in case you're curious, although it's pretty simple to figure out. So this one's a toss-up for me. I don't know if I would recommend this specifically to anybody just because of how it seems unsteady. We cannot guarantee that Flip's gonna stay there, and it seems like it might not. Plus, the premium version on Wakelet is pretty extensive, and it's gonna limit you to what you can do there. If you're gonna choose one, probably smarter to put your energy into figuring out Padlet or Canva, I would say.
Yeah, I'm going to slightly disagree with you. I don't think it's going to go away. Flip is owned by Microsoft. I think they bought them a while ago, right? Well, Wakelet is also owned. I could see something similar happening where both of those two get tucked under Teams, but I don't think it's going to go. I don't think it's going to go away by any stretch of the imagination. Wakelet is the curation station of education. That's what I like to call it. And our next one is an oldie but a goodie. It's low-tech version of all this, and that's just using Google Slides. Remember that there are ways to record within Google Slides. And I think the same functionality that you're going to get everywhere else, but just not the bells and whistles of adding graphics or like it is the bare bones, but it is super effective. So let's at least mention and consider Google Slides as an option. And since that one was brief, I'll get into the next one, which is Book Creator. Book Creator is one of my favorite tools that, I always say I want to use, and I have used it in the past, but as my curriculum that I'm teaching changes, there's less and less of I don't want to say a need, but the curriculum sometimes shapes what EdTech tools that you use, and I just don't really, it's not meshing right now. Will it in the future? Maybe. I hope so. I love Book Creator, but in Book Creator, there's a video option as well where you can get students working with video and you could tuck them into a book. And one of the things I love doing when I taught AP Bio and when I use Book Creator, I love giving them each a topic of a unit. And then what they had to do is come up with some type of artifact, whether it's a video, whether it's a worksheet they design, whether it's a practice quiz or test on the topic that they chose. So they would have to somehow display that they had mastery knowledge of that topic, and then they would have to create some type of a note sheet and an aid that will help other students learn how to master that topic as well.
Yep, Book Creator is awesome, and the video option is going to allow you to get somewhat of a similar feel to Flipgrid, although we're starting to get to me, Book Creator gets further away from what Flipgrid was. Like, yes, you can put videos in the book or on some of the pages, but I don't know. That one's a stretch for me, but it's always worth mentioning Book Creator because of what a great piece of ed tech that is, and I love your idea there. Let's do this next one, which is interesting. Again, not a tool that I use, but we are seeing more and more teachers around us kind of pick up on this guy. It's called Seesaw. If you're not familiar with Seesaw, it is, I always think about it as being used for student portfolios. So if you want a place for students to collect their work as the year goes on, maybe to make it easy to share with you so you can track their growth over time. A lot of teachers use Seesaw as a way to share things home with parents. Like, hey, here's the art projects we've been working on for the past week. Check it out, everybody. And you can easily kind of share that out. What's really great about Seesaw and what I think makes it a contender as a flip replacer is there's tons of really cool built-in stuff for the students to provide peer feedback on the things that go in there. So besides just being for student portfolios, there's also this element of being shareable and allowing students to see and comment on other people's stuff, which is what Flipgrid was best at and all about, right? Sharing those videos with the class so everybody could watch them. So it becomes a place where not only student work can be stored, but you can share it out. You can provide criticism, comments, suggest improvement. I don't know what their insert video is like. It's probably not going to have some of the fun options that Flipgrid had, but it might be able to get the job done for you. And in the process, you might also discover this is just a cool platform that you were not taking advantage of to maybe share home with parents what you guys are working on, or switch over from a traditional assessment to a portfolio style assessment because now you're familiar with this tool. So I think Seesaw deserves to be definitely somewhere on this list of flip replacers.
Yeah, I think it checks enough boxes that it deserves or warrants, to be on the list. And I think so does the next one, and that's quizzes. Now with quizzes, you can make a video response question. And the thing is you're going to have to get a little creative and stretch the bounds a little bit. Make a video response question where all the students can respond to it. And then the teacher up top can basically play the responses for everybody. And then they can make other questions. So if, say we have 25 people in the class and Nick is one of them. So the teacher could play Nick's response after everyone answered the initial question. And then they can make a question that just says Nick on it. And then everyone could take like 15 seconds to give a response to Nick's response to the question, critique it. And then it's all staying within one set of questions, and that's how the classes ran. So I think that is a viable option as well. I think for some of this, we got to look at Flip and the functionality of it and actually see for what Flip was, which is a lot of things, the needs of education has changed. So see what functionalities that you need. If you're a world language teacher and you just need kids to talk in whatever language you're teaching and you need a response recorded, well, maybe quizzes is the way to go. If you want interaction, maybe Google Slides or Canva or Padlet or Wakelet is the way to go. But I don't think that there's really the need for an all-encompassing one-stop shop at this point, because what we have done in the past wasn't really offered by anyone but Flip. And now we do have enough components that are going to cover different functionalities with different EdTech tools.
That's an excellent point to end on, because let's circle back to the very beginning. The teacher that wrote us in about this, Flip going away to educate us on this whole thing, they were using it as an assessment tool, which is a weird way to use Flip in the first place. So there was, I believe, at least on some level, there was no, hey, everybody, let's check out each other's videos. It was just students speaking things that the teacher could then listen to and essentially grade. And if that's how you're using Flip, you've got a lot of options, probably some better options, which is exactly what you talked about. But it's a smart thing to mention. Let's end this whole episode with something we actually haven't done in a while, the EdTech Throwdown segment.
Welcome to the EdTech Throwdown. This is an in-episode competition featuring an EdTech tool, tip, or practice that can be used to enhance learning and increase engagement. In one corner, we have Geis, the genetically confused mixture of silverback, human, and sloth, a walking identity crisis. And in the other corner, we have Nick, the pint-sized powerhouse ready to punch above his weight and give Geis a run for his bananas. It's a showdown between a confused giant and a determined David. Get ready for the ultimate clash of the EdTech Titans.
And maybe the way we'll do it is we each just pick our top one of the past 7, and you guys can vote on whoever you think has the smartest choice. We don't have to explain too much here because we've already gotten into these. And I'll kick it off, so I'm sure to get the one that I want. I'm talking about Wakelet. I did put it down initially, but if you think that the flip camera will stay with Wakelet, and you made a good point, then I think I might use Wakelet, because it literally still has the exact thing we're talking about a replacer for. So for my money, it's hard to argue against anything else. I know they have that paywall that's going to limit me past however many Wakelet boards I can use, but I can work around that, I bet. So Wakelet would be my top choice. What do you think?
Oh, I like how you use my argument
Yep.
against me. That's great. You're pretty good at doing that.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go with Canva, and the reason is one of the things that got students to buy in, and we didn't mention this during the episode, is all the little extra things that you could add, like the TikTok-y captions and the little graphics and things like that. And none of the other ones, in my opinion, can do that as well as Canva does. So I'm going to go with Canva for that alone. I think expressionism is something that is very important for buy-in, and I think it allows us to get to know our students, and it gets them to really buy into the assignment. So I'm going to go with Canva. Nick has Wakelet. I'll take this win, and we'll just call it a day.
All right, so if you want to let us know who you think has the better choice, head to X and find us at EdTech Throwdown. As always, thanks a lot for listening.
Thanks for listening to the EdTech Throwdown. Do us a couple of favors. Subscribe subscribe to our podcast on any major podcast catcher such as Apple, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and Stitcher. Go over to YouTube, search the EdTech Throwdown, subscribe to the channel. You can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The show's handle is EdTech Throwdown. You can connect with Geis at GeisGotTech, Nick at NickGotTech. You can write us an Apple Podcast review. You can tell your friends about www.edtechthrowdown.com. And lastly, go over and check out our friends over at the Teach Better Podcast Network, a network that we are so proudly involved with. Until next time, remember, go try some EdTech because we will do the research so you can teach your class.